All right, we're finally getting into chapter 3, actually being able to do things using the help system. This chapter is going to help us understand how to use the help system and how it can help us. It says here some things are called commands, some things are called commandlets, some are called functions, and they have other names, but they're all basically variations of a command. When you first start PowerShell, some of the help's not going to be there, so you have to update it. In this example, it says get help, cannot find the help files. You have to download and install them using update help. It also notes here that in some examples, you'll see people using help instead of get-help. Apparently that's a function which wraps the get-help commandlet. It says it works much the same, but it pipes the output of get-help to less so that you can see it in a page view. But it'll give you the same results. It's just formatted a little differently. And if you get stuck in a page view, you can press Q to quit. It says here, help has several parameters. One of the most important ones is -name, where you type the name of the topic you want to get to. It's a positional parameter, so you don't have to type -name. You can just provide the name you're looking for. It also accepts wildcards, which makes this useful for discovering new commands. In this example, if you want to do something with events and you don't know what might be available, you can decide to search for help topics that cover events. So you can do something like help star event star or help object. And the reason this works is it gets different help items for commands that include the word event or object in the name. And it'll show you a list here of different ones that match that. And this will give you a starting point on which ones you can find out more information on to see if they are going to suit your need. It says here you might also notice about topics, which are not related to a specific command, but they give you a good amount of detail regarding certain PowerShell functions, so look out for those. And it also mentions here that you'll want to search something broad when you're getting started so that you can be sure that you'll get the most results possible. And here, if you find a command that looks like it's going to do the job, you can search for help on that specific command and then get more details about it. Don't forget about tab completion. If you type a portion of a command and press tab, it auto-completes what you typed with the closest match. And if you continue pressing tab, then you'll get a list of alternative matches. Try it now. If we type help register dash and press tab, it will match on commands that start with register dash. So let's just see. And I'll hit tab. Okay, it's cycling through a bunch of different commands that start with register dash. That's one way to discover new commands. All right, it says here when you use the wildcard, if it only finds a single match, then it won't display a list. Instead, it'll display the content for that item. So if we were to type get-event s asterisk help, so if we were to type help get-event s asterisk, you should only see the help file for event subscriber because there's only one item, only one command that starts with get-event s, and that's get event subscriber. And out of curiosity, I want to test that out. So if we type help get-event s and hit tab, and I keep hitting tab, that's the only one I get. So there's only one thing that starts with event s. But if I go back to event and hit tab, it looks like there's two. There's get-event and get-event subscriber. So if I hit a star here, we get a list. But if we have an S, then it's showing us specifically the help for get event subscriber. So this is what I was talking about. If you type help instead of get-help, it pipes it to list. I'm sorry, it pipes it to less. So you can see down here it has more and a cursor. So if you hit spacebar, it'll go to the next page. And if you've seen all the information you need to see and you won't care to continue, you can press the letter Q to quit and get you back to your terminal. Looks like you can search directly for commandlets by using get-command or its alias GCM. So if you know the name of a commandlet that you're looking for, you can use get-command to go directly to the help information for it. I use this one all the time to get a list of different commands that are available that start with get or match a specific module that I'm looking for. So if we do this example, GCM get, GCM is just an alias for get command, so we'll do get-command and we'll do star get star and hit enter. And this shows us a list of every command that starts with that contains get. It does not necessarily starts with, because you see when get is down here. It's because we included an asterisk at the beginning. If we didn't include that, then this last one won't show up because we're only looking for things that start with get. And if we don't want this one either, we can say look for anything that starts with get dash. And that'll narrow down your search results. You can also use noun and verb parameters. This is just an alternate way of searching get commands like this. Instead of get dash asterisk, I could have done verb get, and it's the same thing. And you can specify the different type. So if we look in the first column here, these are all commandlets. Some of these are functions. And some of these are aliases. So if you only want to search aliases that start with get, you can do verb get. What was it? It says type. Oh, that only works with name. Okay, so we're getting into some more syntax things here. So if we were to do, first let's just do get dash command. Get type alias.
I'm taking a shower.
And now I get a list of all the aliases that start with get or that contain the word get. But you notice we didn't have the option for type when using the verb. If I tab through all of these, or if I just hit dash T and hit tab, I only have total count. I don't have type like I had up here. And that's because there are different parameter sets for functions. So if I type help get dash command, we've got 2 rows here. So for this first one, if we use verb noun, then we don't have the option for type. And if we use dash name, which is where we were using the asterisk, then we have the option for, I'm not seeing type here either. It must be a parameter alias. So some of these parameters have aliases. Let's take a look if we continue looking down this list. Here's how you read this. After the name, then you get the syntax, and you get 2 different parameter sets, and then you get the information for all the parameters. So, and they're in alphabetical order here. Dash all is one of the parameters. It says whether or not it's required. False, it's not required. Whether it's position, meaning you don't have to specify it. Well, it's named, so you do have to specify dash all if you're going to use it. Does it accept pipeline input? True by property name. So if you're piping something into this that has a property of all true or false, then it will accept that. Parameter set name, it says all here. So it looks like this parameter works with both parameter sets. Does it have an alias? No. whether or not it's dynamic and whether or not it accepts wildcard characters. This one here, argument list accepts an object array. So let's look for any that have an alias of type. So I'll hit spacebar. Here it is, command type. The alias is type. Parameter set name is all command set. Now, I don't think they specify the names here, but you can see here it says command type. So dash type is an alias for dash command type. And we see that we have this available when we're using dash name, but this is not in this first parameter set when we're using verb noun parameters. So according to this, if I were to do Q for quit and just up arrow till I see this, if I were to do this command, get command star get star type alias, this should be exactly the same as command type alias. Same thing. Now if you wanted to, if you do dash with a letter C and you hit tab, you can cycle through everything that starts with the letter C in the parameters, and you notice there's only one. So I can just do dash C, and this will assume that the rest of it is going to be command type because it's not ambiguous. There's only one. So I could do this as well, and it gets the same result. I wonder if the same matches up with dash T. Nope. There's type and total count. So what happens if you do dash T and there's two options? It's ambiguous. So it'll give you an error because it doesn't know what you're trying to do. It says cannot be processed because the parameter name T is ambiguous. Possible matches include dash total, count, or dash command type. And it doesn't say dash type because dash type is an alias for command type. So it's telling us command type. All right. And here's what I was talking about a minute ago. This is the syntax section. There's 2 lines here for the syntax for get item. It says it's listed twice, which indicates that the command supports 2 parameter sets. You can use the command in 2 distinct ways. Some parameters will be shared between both of them, but some are only for one or the other. You'll notice that both include dash filter. In this case, the first set supports dash literal path, which is not included in the second set. It has dash path, which isn't included in the first set. Here's how it works. If you use a parameter that's included in only one set, you're locked into that set and can only use additional parameters that appear within that same set. So if you choose to use literal path, you cannot use parameters from the other set, in this case path, because it doesn't live in the first parameter set. That means they're mutually exclusive. You'll never use both of them at the same time because they're in different sets. Here's a gotcha. It says sometimes it's possible to run a command with only parameters that are shared between both sets. In those cases, the shell will usually select the first listed parameter set. Because each parameter set implies different behavior, it's important to understand which parameter set you're running. And you'll also notice that every parameter set for PowerShell ends with common parameters. This refers to a set of 11 different parameters that are available on every single commandlet, no matter how you're using it. And it says we'll get into those later. Here's more on how to read the help file. You don't need every single parameter to make a commandlet run. Optional parameters are in square brackets. So, for example, if it shows brackets dash credential brackets, it indicates that the entire credential parameter is optional. You don't have to use it at all. And here it says about ambiguity. You only need to type as much so that it's unambiguous. For example, F wouldn't be sufficient for force because F could also mean filter. But FO would work because force is the only parameter that starts with FO. And it says what happens if you try to run a command without specifying a mandatory parameter. So let's try it out. It says here that for get item, path is mandatory because the entire parameter, name and value, isn't surrounded in square brackets. So you see down here, it does have square brackets around path, but it doesn't have square brackets surrounding the name and the value. So let's run getItem without specifying a path. Since it's looking for a mandatory parameter, we have to specify path. Okay, I specified one, and since it takes an array, it's going to automatically go to the next item, assuming that I want to include multiple items. But if I only need one, then at the next item, I'll just leave it blank and hit enter. Now it can give us the result. Also, don't forget at any time you can press Control-C to stop any command that's running. So if we were to do getItem and it asks us for a mandatory parameter and we decide we don't want to do that, we can do Control-C and it'll take us back to the terminal. Positional parameters are interesting. Many commandlets allow positional parameters, meaning the first 1 or 2 or 3 or however many they specify parameters are going to be assumed, so you don't actually have to type the parameter name when entering the commandlet. So like path, for example, if we do getHelp, getItem, that wasn't enough. Let's do -full. See, this is why help is fine, because it just skimmed through all that and I would have to scroll up and find what I was looking for. But help automatically pipes this to less. Sorry, more. Now let's look for -path. Here it is. Position 0. Required true, position 0. So that means if I hit Q and I go back here to getItem, I can do -path and enter a path name and hit enter. Or I could leave this out entirely and it will assume that the first argument goes to whatever positional parameter is at 0, in this case path. So if I type getItem and then some string, it's going to assume that I'm implying that this is for the path parameter. So I can do this and hit enter and I get the same result. So if you're typing any command that doesn't have an explicitly specified parameter, then you might want to make sure that you know what it's using it for. In this case, path. It says here that you can see that path is a positional parameter because it is enclosed in square brackets. So that means it's optional to type out. And it says here you can mix and match. So if you do getItem and then the tilde, which is an alias for your home path, and then -filter asterisk, it's legal because the tilde will be fed to the path parameter because it's in the first position, and star will go to the -filter parameter because that's explicitly named. If you use the names, then the order is unimportant because you're specifying which argument goes to which parameter. So let's try that now. So if we do getItem C filter star, then it shows us a list of what's there. And it works. And we can also do it in the opposite order by doing -path C. And I wonder what happens if we just leave off this. It still works. The reason this works is because the star is going to -filter, and since C is the first argument that is not going to a specified named parameter, it's going to look for the one that's in position 0, and that's going to be path. So all of these are the same command, basically. It's assuming that this is going to the -path parameter. It says here some commands have multiple positional parameters. In this case, getChildItems, first one is path and the second one is filter. So So you can do commands like get child item C star, and that'll show you everything that's available, because the C will go to the path parameter and the star will go to the filter parameter. So when you're starting out, I definitely recommend being explicit and specifying all your parameter names like this: path and filter. Same thing. The parameter values in the help file also give you clues about the kind of input that they accept. So in angle brackets, you see string here after filter, so it looks like it's expecting a string. Here are common file types. A string is just a series of letters and numbers, including spaces. If it has spaces, it's got to be enclosed in quotes. Int 32, or int 64 is an integer number, a whole number with no decimal. And date time is generally a string that can be interpreted as a date based on your computer's region settings. So in US, it's something like month, day, year. In this case, string with square brackets indicates that it can accept an array or a collection or list of strings. But you could always just provide a single value. Here's an example. If you do get item path tilde, then it'll show what's in the home directory. But if you provide a comma and another value, then it'll work as well. It'll search for everything in the home directory as well as your downloads folder. If it has spaces, then you'll need to put quotes around everything individually, not around the entire list, because then it will look for a folder that's named this, which doesn't exist. There's other ways to feed a list of values into a parameter, including reading computer names from a file or other commandlets. It says we'll get to those in later chapters. Some parameters are switches, which are basically a true or false. So like dash force, if you include it, it'll be true. If you don't include it, it'll be false. One of the things I really like about PowerShell's help is the option for examples. If you use help get item example, then it will show you a list of different examples that you can use and learn from. So let's try that now. Okay, so I didn't update the help earlier. Let me go ahead and do that now. Update help. Looks like there were some errors. It says maybe we can get help content by doing this. Before I do that, let me just check examples again for get item. Looks like I got the examples, so I'm not going to do that just yet. But here are the examples. Get items in the current directory. When talking about a file structure, period is the current directory. 2 periods is the directory above the current directory. Here's another example. Get all items in the current directory with an asterisk. Get all items in a drive. Show the contents of a registry key. So there are different PowerShell drives that allow you to search like the registry or certificates or things like that. And this is what output would look like for non-Windows operating systems. And what I've been using to clear the screen is CLS, which is an alias for, I think it's clear dash screen. Let's find out. Clear host. And here it gives more information regarding the about topics. So we can find all of those by searching for help about. And looks like there's a ton of them. So it looks like there's an about common file. So let's search for common. Oh, there must only be one. About common parameters. And it gives us more detail here that we can read. Quite a few pages here. It says here are the 11 common parameters. Verbose, debug, warning action, warning variable, error variable, out buffer, information action, information variable, and pipeline variable. And apparently you can also get help that's available online by doing -online. Let's try that. And it tries to open a web browser and take us to the web page. So if you're looking for information on any of the commandlets, you can either view it in the terminal or you can view it on this website here, learn.microsoft.com. It's got a bunch of great details and examples. Mostly the same information, just in a different format. And here's the lab. Step 1, run update help. We just did that. Can we find any commandlets capable of converting other commandlets output into HTML? So we're looking about converting and output and HTML. So let's search for help HTML star HTML star. There's only one, convert to -HTML. It's got notes and examples here as well. You can get straight to the examples by doing -examples. Are there any commandlets that can redirect output to a file? Let's search for help star file star. There's a lot of stuff here, but I don't think all of them are what we're looking for. Out file looks interesting. Let's take a look at that one. It says the file receives the same display representation as the terminal. This means the output may not be ideal for programmatic processing unless all inputs are strings. When you need to specify parameters, use out-file rather than the redirection operator. For more information, you can see about redirection. It looks like the last thing here is related links. Out default, out host, out null, out string, and t object. Now, I know there's a couple other options for us. Add content and set content. This will append add content will append content directly to a file, or set content will overwrite a file. How many commandlets are available for working with processes? Remember, commandlets use a singular noun. So let's Q to quit out of that, CLS to clear, and we'll do help star process star. Looks like there's a few of them. Debug, get, start, stop, wait. What commandlet might you use to set a PowerShell breakpoint? PowerShell specific nouns are often prefixed with PS. So we could search for PS or breakpoint. First I'll start with breakpoint. Looks like there's a few of them. If we want to see everything that includes PS in the noun, we could do help dash noun. Nope. Oh, good command. There it is. I hit N, tab for name, but tabbed again because I want to get to noun. And we'll say PS star. So it looks like there's quite a lot of them. Another way to get the same result is get command, and we'll just do dash star dash ps star. Same thing. Number 6, what commandlets are available to create, modify, export, or import aliases? So let's do help alias. Export, get, import, new, remove, set, about. So get alias is what I'd used earlier. And it can be used either whether or not you know the alias. So if we do help get alias, you can specify the definition or the name. So let me hit Q and do dash examples. Get all aliases in the current session. You can just do get alias. If you know the names of the alias, you can type this and even exclude. And if you know the definition, you can type the definition. So let's do get child item, for example. Q, CLS, get alias, definition, get dash child item. So there's 3 aliases for get child item: dir, GCI, and ls. And if we knew the alias ls but didn't know what it went for, we could do get alias name ls. And it tells us what it directs to. Is there a way to keep a transcript of everything you type in the shell and save that to a file? Start and stop transcript. Looks like those will do that. Getting all processes can be overwhelming. How can you get processes by the name of the process? So if we do help process, let's just look for the ones that start with get. So we'll do help get star, get dash star process star. I think this is the one we need, get dash process. So let's just run that. And it looks like it lists a whole bunch of things. All the processes. So let's look at the help for it. Looks like we can specify dash name. Specifies one or more processes by process name. You can type multiple names separated by commas and use wildcard characters. The parameter name is optional because it's in position 0. So we can do get dash process edge. Nope, doesn't exist. Let's try wildcard characters. Okay, that gets us all of the MS Edge processes. Is there a way to tell get process to tell you the user who started the process? That's a good question. Let's go back into the help and first check the parameters and then the examples. Looks like here is name and dash include username, or ID include username. So we did name already. Let's just do include username and see what happens. Q. I'll go up to this one and we'll do include username. Requires admin rights. There we go. It's got the username there as well. Is there a way to run a command on a remote host? Hint, invoke is the verb for running something now. So let's search for invoke. Invoke command runs commands on local and remote computers. 11. Examine the help file for out file commandlet. The files created by this commandlet default to a width of how many characters? Is there a parameter that would enable you to change that width? So according to this, The file receives the same display representation as a terminal, so my first guess is however wide the PowerShell terminal is. However, let's keep checking to verify. Here we go. Dash width specifies the number of characters in each line of output. If it's not used, the width is determined by the characteristics of the host. The default for PowerShell console is 80 characters. If you want to control the width, you can use PS default parameter values outfile width equals and then a number. 12. By default, outfile overwrites any existing file that has the same file name as what you specify. Is there a parameter that would prevent the commandlet from overwriting an existing file? Let's start over. Looks like we have append and no clobber. I wonder what those do. So append adds the output to the end of an existing file, and no clobber prevents an existing file from being overwritten and displays a message. By default, if a file exists, out-file overwrites the file without warning. How could you see a list of all aliases defined in PowerShell? Looks like we saw that in the get-alias example. Hit Q, CLS, get-alias. There we go. Looks like that's all the aliases in the current session. If you add a new alias, then it will show up there as well. Using both an alias and abbreviated parameter names, what is the shortest command line you could type to retrieve a list of commands with the word process in the name? Okay. If we want to get a list of commands, that's get-command. And if we want to use an alias of that, that's going to be GCM. And we want to see commands with the word process in the name. So we would do GCM. We can do GCM star process star because dash name is going to be a positional parameter of 0. And that'll get us a list of the commands that include the word process. How many commandlets are available that can deal with generic objects? Remember to use a singular noun-like object rather than a plural one-like objects. So we'll do CLS help star object star. Here we go. For each object, where object, compare object, group object, measure object, new object, select, sort, and T. A lot of those are very useful. This chapter briefly mentioned arrays. What help topic could tell you more about arrays? Let's find out. Help star array star. There's only one, about arrays. And here's a description of what they are. Describes arrays, which are data structures designed to store collections of items. And here's the answers. Update-help, or if you run it more than once in a single day, update-help space-force. Help HTML, or you could try using the get-command noun HTML. Okay, so for question number 3, instead of just files, it also searched for printers. Get command process. Help breakpoint. Help alias, help transcript. Okay, it looks like you can use the help to get information on a specific parameter for a commandlet. So let's try that. Help get-process parameter name. And that way you can look at a specific parameter instead of having to sort through all the help. Help invoke command. Help out file. It says it shows 80 characters as the default for PowerShell console. and you would use this parameter to change it as well. You can use the width parameter to change it for that instance, but if you use that variable that we looked at earlier, that would change it without using the width variable. Help out file, and you should see no clobber, which we did. Get-alias gcm-na process. We didn't use the shorter version of the parameter name. We just excluded it entirely because it's a positional parameter. Get-command noun object. Help about arrays, or you could use wildcards. That was a little bit longer. And then chapter 4, we'll get into running commands. Peace.